everybody knew, like, is that guy? So I kind of look, I put my government face on here, but when I'm doing commercials, I put the state face on. So, and that commercial was supposed to be kind of humorous, and that's what I did, and I do. But I love doing that kind of thing. I do movies, I do other types of commercials, and so that's what I do for fun. I do this for a job, and I'm proud to be doing it. But I do a lot of other things. So that's sort of my life.
I have a question. You said that your job is to get the best qualified people to serve the wants and needs of citizens. To what extent you also have to look at diversity in the terms of the diverse employment base, and how do you gauge that?
Well, we know who we hire. And the question is, how do we go out and find those people that we hire? We know how diverse we are, and I can tell you there needs to be some improvement. There needs to be some improvement there throughout the state of Missouri, not just in one area, but throughout the state. But it's how you go about selecting and finding those individuals, and that's what we have to try to improve. A lot of it is going to go out in the communities, like the Hispanic communities, and go out in a lot of other places and try to let people know this is what we do, and let them know how they can become part of this. And that's going to be the thing. You can call it, it's not affirmative action. I don't look at it that way. I think it's affirmatively out trying to make things work that it benefits everyone. Okay? So that's how we do it. But I'm pleased.
In trying to promote the many openings, while you try to promote the openings within the state of Missouri, have you found a very challenging area when it comes to attracting minorities to pursue those positions? Maybe the marketing material may not be suitable enough for that area. Is there any challenge in those?
I think the challenge right now is not in finding people. Unfortunately, people are plenty. I think the challenge that we have right now is getting people to want to go out and start looking again. There are a lot of people who are laid off, who don't have jobs, who want jobs and that type of thing, but there are a lot of people who are not doing anything. And some of the things that we need to do is reach out in the communities and let the communities know what we have available, and then try to find a fair and equitable way to get those people to apply and hopefully get a number selected. And so that's our challenge. That's our challenge, and that's what I'm all about. That's my goal. That's what I need to be doing. And so with the idea of having the steak, we'll give everybody a steak or something.
We all want a steak.
We all want a steak. Okay. One more question, and I'm going to let the commissioner.
Due to the demographics of the state of Missouri, is there an initiative to have the employment base of the state of Missouri look like the demographics of the population of the state of Missouri?
That is definitely our goal. I've heard it said to me when I was interviewing for this position, one of the things that was told to me is that we really need to mirror what we have in our state. And I think that you're going to hear that. We're hoping that you're going to see that. And what we're trying to do is build that. We're trying to get to that point. I don't think we're at that point at now, But I think that with all of us trying to work together, we can do that. And that's definitely one of my goals. As a matter of fact, when I was interviewing, I think that was sort of hinted that we need to mirror and look more like what we have in our state. So rest assured, I don't know how far I'll get, but we're going to be digging for it.
So I understand that you're looking to implement programs and procedures to meet that goal.
Oh, by all means. I mean, and a lot of that is really getting out in the communities. A lot of that is getting out in the communities and making your familiar and comfortable with who I am and what we're trying to do, and then get our managers to be familiar and comfortable with the other people in the communities. That's tantamount to making this work.
we're going to have to take them over.
Yeah.
Right now. As a small token of our appreciation, a pen from our sponsor, National City. Thank you for being here. Really thank you.
Don't forget the stage.
On program or good?
We have a special guest here today representing Governor Nixon, and to introduce him, I'm going to bring up the Chief of the Office of Minority Health, Joe Palm.
Once again, good afternoon now. I wanted to just bring greetings on behalf of my director, Margaret Donnelly. She's in Atlanta right now at a conference dealing with the H1N1 virus. So she could not be here today, and she asked that I bring the greetings. But we all work as a team, and we're very committed to diversity across the state. You have Alan Green here with Workforce and Supplier Diversity out of OA. You have Roxy Flores. You have the Deputy Director there, Walter Pearson. When you hear OA in state government, I don't care what you're doing, your ears perk up. And the reason your ears perk up is because OA is the machine that makes the state run. Now, who I want to bring before you is a man that is very powerful. He's the former director of DED. He's a former councilman in Kansas City. He's done so many things in his past. His resume is very great. But most importantly, he signs every check that every state employee receives. Okay? He's third in command of the state of Missouri. I want to bring before you Commissioner Kelvin Simmons.
Joe is far too kind. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
What a pleasure it is to be in front of each and every one of you. I know that some of you will be familiar with the state of Missouri, some will not. When you talk about OA, as he just said, OA, for those of you that are not familiar with the state of Missouri, it's the Office of Administration. And so often when you come, would you mind if I just do this and come out here for a moment? When you often talk to the people in state government and you have a director, one of the governor's cabinet directors, I am the first appointed cabinet director for Governor Jay Nixon, who brings his greetings also. Often when you hear the name of the agency that they are responsible for, you immediately know what they do. If I were to come and say Director of Social Services, you kind of have an idea of what social services does. Economic development, you know a little bit about economic development. Revenue, you know they're collecting taxes. Public safety, you've got the highway patrol and people like that. But when somebody says OA, or Office of Administration, most of the times you have a blank look because you don't know exactly what does the Office of Administration do? What is it in conjunction with state government? So before I start my conversation, I want to tell you a little bit about the Commissioner of the Office of Administration, which I am, and what OA does as it relates to state government. Now, when I get through telling you this, I'm going to swear you to secrecy. You cannot tell anybody what you just learned. All right? I'm going to do that. For one, the Office of Administration, as Joe said, we pay all of the bills in state government. So therefore, we have the Division of Accounting in state government. All facilities in the state of Missouri, and I say all, 34 million square feet, that is all run by the Office of Administration through our facilities management, design, and construction. All of the contracts in state government, that's run by our Division of Purchasing. Accounting, contracts, you just met my recent employee, Mr. Bill Miller, who handles the personnel for the state of Missouri. So all of the personnel is handled by the Office of Administration. all of the information technology. When you go on and look online for anything related to state government, information technology, that's done by the Office of Administration. All the telephones. You call us in state government, we're not only paying the bill, but we're dealing with, the telecommunications. So when you look at that, you see that there's a wide variety of what we do. May I say that the entire budget of the state of Missouri is run through the Office of Administration. All $23 billion that is basically done every year through the governor's recommendation, that's all done within the Office of Administration. General services, all the vehicles, all the fleets, we pay all of the legal bills, all done through the Office of Administration. So, when you hear Office of Administration and then you run the gamut of what we do, most people don't have a clue, and that's okay. They said I sign all of the checks for all of the employees. That's right. But if you ever receive a refund check, guess whose name is on it? If you ever receive any check from the state of Missouri, guess whose name is on it? So you know what? Shh. Don't tell anybody what you're learning today, because the Office of Administration in its breadth and its scope is large. In other words, there's not a state agency that cannot do without the Office of Administration, because we basically make government run. We operate government. The other part of that this year, I'm also responsible for all of the stimulus accountability, transparency, and all reporting to the federal government is done through the Office of Administration. I am currently the chair of the Complete Count Committee, who Adolfo is a part of our committee. I chair that, which operates in conjunction with the United States Census. So, Commissioner, Chairman, also handle the pension fund. I'm on the board of directors for the pension fund for the state of Missouri, and I'm also on the board for our Missouri Consolidated Health, which is our insurance for all of the citizens. Well, not all the citizens, I wish we could get there one day, but all of our employees. So there's a little bit of what we do that you probably now understand, which has all of the pulse of state government. Now, one of the big issues and one of the big, people that you're going to learn a little bit about with Roxy Flores is all of the workforce diversity, all of the contracting, ensuring that there are minority and women participation in state contracts is also handled by the Office of Administration. So I do just a little bit. Would you say? Just a little bit? Shh, we're not going to tell anybody. I'm here today on behalf of our cabinet, on behalf of Governor Nixon, to say welcome to the state of Missouri. Again, welcome to each and every one of you. Some of you I've had an opportunity to meet, some I have not had an opportunity to meet, and I look forward to that. You might understand that I get a little busy around here right now as we speak. I have one of my bills being heard in the legislature, House Bill 13, which basically regulates and is responsible for all of the buildings in the state. We're going through that process. Normally, I sit right next to my director and I present the bill to the legislature, but guess where I am right now? I'm with you, right? Because it's indeed important to be here. We want to continue our outreach to the state of Missouri, and we want to continue to do a number of things. One that I'm going to tell you that is vitally important for all of our business people in the state of Missouri. Currently in my budget, I am carrying right now a disparity study initiative. Some of you may know what a disparity study is, some may not know what a disparity study. I'm going to tell you what it is and why it's important, particularly as it relates to minority business and as it relates to women-owned business. The federal government and often state government and the courts require us to have a disparity study if we are to ensure a program that would allow us to do contracting, specific contracting on governmental contracts. I'm a former city councilman of the city of Kansas City. There we have a disparity study. We have a program that ensures a certain percentage of all contracts are awarded to minorities and to women with all the contracts that go on in the city of Kansas City. We are trying to do the same thing with the state of Missouri, but first we have to have a disparity study. What that disparity study does is it shows whether or not there is a level of discrimination that is basically being practiced within state government, where there should be a larger share of minority and women-owned business getting their fair share of contracts in the state of Missouri. That currently is in my budget. It's before the legislature. It's at a hearing in the House. It's at a hearing in the Senate. And I got to tell you, that's a big deal for us right now, because without it, it's very hard to have a plan that then the courts would allow us to have that would show we would have a certain percentage of contracts awarded to minorities and women. We do billions of dollars of contracting in the state of Missouri. Billions of dollars. And it is my goal to ensure that with those billions of dollars of contracting, that we are making every stride to ensure some level of equality and being equitable with those contracts to minority and women-owned businesses. You have met a number of people on my staff today, and they just called out a few of them. Let me just tell you something. That's not window dressing. Since I walked in this door, becoming commissioner of the Office of Administration, my office as commissioner is 39% minority. 39% minority. 69% of that is women. My chief legal counsel, deputy commissioner, woman. My chief budget officer, the person responsible for the budget for the state of Missouri, woman. So when I talk about minority and women, I'm talking it and I'm walking it. So, we are not done. And I see my first question over there. And please, anytime you got a question, let's go. Yes, ma'am. And I hope it's a hard one. Give me a hard one. Not an easy one.
Okay, I'm a minority businesswoman,
Yes, ma'am.
but I'm not certified.
I need you to be certified.
How?
Bingo! I got my first question in terms of how to be certified.
Is it me?
Now, let me say something to you. I'm not going to pander. Roxy, you're on. Come here. Come on up.
You have the first client here.
Roxy, by the way, Roxana is a part of the Office of Administration. She's in the Division of Supplier Workforce Diversity. I just had a question about how do you become certified, and I'm going to let you tell her.
Thank you, sir.
Not in English.
In Spanish? Okay. La forma en que te puedes certificar para hacer un negocio el cual es dueño una minoría, lo único que tienes que hacer es ir a la página web y bajar la aplicación, llenarla, adjuntar todos los requisitos que ellos te piden y entregarla. Eso es todo.
No tengo que pagar una cuota.
Nada, absolutamente, es completamente gratis.
Y cuando estás certificado es cuando tú puedes tener ya contratos del gobierno para que te puedan...
La certificación no te ayuda ni te garantiza que te van a dar un contrato. Eso no lo
pero
puedes
ya
hacer.
certificado, ya el gobierno te toma en cuenta que
Sí.
son las compañías certificadas.
Puedes trabajar como un subcontratista para un contratista de primera clase, pero también tú puedes participar de todos los entrenamientos que nosotros damos. También nosotros te dejamos saber cuando vienen nuevas oportunidades económicas para ti y también te ayudamos a que vayas por el proceso de no tengo suficiente capacidad para ser un contratista de primera, tratamos de llevarte a ese nivel.
¿Tienes la página web?
Claro que sí, es www.oswd.mo.gov.
Muchísimas gracias.
De nada.
Gracias. Buenos días.
Follow up. Repeat the question so we can.
Like, you know, I mean, you said that you're trying to get that passed, to be able
Yes.
to do the disparity study. Like,
Yes.
as people,
Yes.
and Hispanic people, minority people, how do we support you in getting that?
Very good. Your name is?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth just asked the question in terms of how do we get individuals to support us with respect to the disparity study? What can you do as citizens to support that effort? The first thing I would say is all appropriations in the state of Missouri, all budget issues, come before the legislature, whether it's the House or the Senate. Our budget comes in front of an appropriations committee in the House and Senate, and then ultimately it's going to go before the budget committee. A phone call to your representative or your senator saying, let me tell you why it's important to have a disparity study. Let me tell you from a small, minority, and women-owned business perspective why that's important for the state of Missouri. Right now, as you think about this, we are trying our best to move forward in the state of Missouri as it relates to economic development. We're trying our best, like the rest of this country, to move forward in getting small businesses, which basically are the meat and potatoes of this economy in the state of Missouri and the United States. And we have to have everybody participating in the economic climate of the United States. And it needs to be fair, and it needs to be equitable. And it needs to be with minorities, and it needs to be with women, and it needs to be with small business entrepreneurs. And so in ensuring that fairness, if you were to make the call to the representative or the senator and say that this is important, it has unified, unanimous support in a lot of quadrants all across the state of Missouri. They put together an annual report that looks at all the certifications in the state of Missouri. You'd be surprised. We have 114 counties. Within those 114 counties, probably 85% or more has certified minority or women-owned businesses. So it's not just an urban issue, Kansas City or St. Louis. We have a number of small businesses throughout the state of Missouri that are certified. So when a legislator feels that it's important because their constituents are telling them, then it's closer to home to them. So I would simply say a call to your legislator, whether it be your representative or senator, particularly if you know those that are on the Budget Committee or Appropriations Committee, responsible for oversight with the Office of Administration, they would probably want to hear from you most. There was, yes, sir.
Roxy mentioned that I'll let her know. You mentioned that there is 114 counties.
Yes.
And there's people that are certified.
Yes.
How do you let them know?
How do we
about
let
contract, about opportunities? Because she, yeah.
Now, I would answer, but Roxy over here just stuck her hand up, you know, like when you're in grade school, it's like, ooh, 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 ooh.
I got that.
Roxy just did that, and so this time in English, Roxy.
Of course. There is, on our own webpage, there is a link that is called bids, and all you need to do is click on it. Every single available bid that is from the Division of Purchasing and Materials Management is available there for your use. Also, if there is another contract opportunity, let's say in a department that is below the $25,000 level, they will send it to us. If I know that you guys are interested, let's say in janitorial or on cleaning supplies, I have a list that I will send out to all of you, and I say, okay, this number of people need to know about this bid because it's important and they need to have it. So just yesterday, was it yesterday or the day before, we were talking to someone in St. Louis over the phone, and we were walking him through how to find bids on the internet. So all you guys need to do is pick up the phone and call us.
My question to you is that once you're certified with the state, let's say she applies for a certification, she's got that certification, does she need to also certify with the St. Louis Minority Business Council, which is a local, so it's a
multi-tier?
Yeah, you have to certify with the St. Louis Minority Business Council, also, and then with the state, because I think we have
A reciprocal?
Yeah, reciprocal.
It works the other way around. Let's say, for example, she's certified with the St. Louis Minority Business Council,
Right.
and she wants the state certification, then they can come over here, and just with that certificate, we give them our certification.
Right.
But for us, it doesn't work the other way, because I think there is a requirement for the St. Louis Minority Council that we don't require of you guys, so it is not reciprocal the other way. But
There
from
is
them
a
to us,
financial
yes,
requirement
there is a
from-
financial requirement.
From the
yes.
St. Louis Minority Business Council that you don't have with the state certification.
So to clarify, certification statewide is for state contracts,
Yes,
while then the St. Louis City may be some of those.
for St. Louis.
contracts.
And the ones from Kansas City should go with Kansas City Human Resources Division.
One of the things that I need to let you know, and I see you back there, Alan, one of the things I need to let you know is we are a very transparent state in the sense that if you want to know at any time a contract that is let in the state of Missouri, it's all on our website. If you want to know how much somebody made on a contract in the state of Missouri, it's all on our website. If you want to know how much I make, it's all on our website. In other words, it is trying to be as transparent as possible. We call it the Missouri Accountability Portal. It's the map known to most of us. But you can actually go there and you can find out how much a contractor is making, how much the contract is worth. And then we even have the ability, if you are in a certain area, specialization, looking for business opportunities, there's a $50 payment that you can make, and we would send you out the contracts when they're ready to go so that you would know what they are. We have that capability electronically to be able to do that. So we put everything up on the website. Again, it's done because I have a centralized accounting system that the moment the state pays anybody, it immediately goes up on that portal. It immediately goes up on the website. There's no manual manipulation in between. And so you're getting a true contract dollar amount for how much we're spending on our contracts. By the way, the Office of Administration last year spent $40 million with minorities across the state of Missouri. We were 30% of the contracts that we let, 30% was spent with minorities. 4.6% was spent with women. We got to do a better job, but I am still #1 in state government in terms of contracts let with minorities. I'm #2 with respect to women. I missed being #1 by 0.6%. I'm going to do better next time to be #1 in both. I'm his man, so.
The term minority,
yes,
as we measure throughout the state,
yes,
how do you see that? Because if I want to know right now, presumably, if we have Hispanic businesses that are bidding,
yes,
what is the success of their bidding as we distribute those bids, and when you analyze it and say these are minority, how much within that minority are broken down so that we can tell whether it's fair or not fair?
I'm going to try to dissect that a little bit, and I want you to help me along with that question, if you would. When we look at the term minority and how it is spent on contracts, I want to say this to you. The first thing is we look at the federal government definition. And Roxy or Alan, I'm going to ask you to help me with that federal government definition, because it's probably going to say black African American. It's going to say non-white Hispanic, Asian Pacific Islander, and it is going to go Native American Indian. I think that's what our federal government states in terms of how you define minority. Now, we're going to understand after we do this 2010 census, who I'm sure they're going to talk to you about the 2010 census, as Mr. Aldolfo is back there shaking his head that he's probably going to talk to you about it. You're going to find out how the federal government is defining it even further with the 2010 census, because it's going to drill down a little further than us. But for the most part, what I just defined for you is the federal definition, and the state basically takes on the federal definition so that we know. And I will tell you, we do an annual report that we just completed, and it shows the percentages of minority contracts in the state of Missouri defined how I just defined it. And so it doesn't drill down. In other words, if we're going to do non-white Hispanic, it may not drill down to the point of being able to clarify whether it's Mexican, whether it's Central American, or any other terms. It's going to say non-white Hispanic, because that's following what the federal government definition is.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Does the state of Missouri have certain law that say that companies should hire so many minorities on an annual basis, or is that through the EEOC?
We do not have an actual statutory law that has a requirement that you must hire a certain number of minorities. What we have is executive orders by the executive branch issued through, and we've got one on Governor Nixon's desk right now, that is going to suggest through that executive order that all of the state agencies that fall in the executive branch will look at a certain affirmative action plan that when they are making hiring decisions, you take into account that you are underutilized in a certain area with either women or minorities. And our annual report specifies that. So for instance, to put me on the spot, when I look at my workforce plan in the Office of Administration, I have about 2,000 employees. When I look at that plan, it tells me where I'm underutilized. It may say that in management positions, 102, I'm underutilized with minorities, which means if this plan is working correctly, the next time there's a hiring decision, if I looked at my plan and I saw I was underutilized there, I would make every effort that I could to try to recruit for that position so that I am now at par and no longer underutilized. That's how our executive order will read, that's how our annual report will reflect, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. But you know what? We're not there.
You need more white. You need more white people because you already have 39% in minorities.
You said that. The camera's rolling. You said that.
We did hear that.
I am trying to say to you that we've got to do a better job. We know that. But we need you helping us to do a better job. Again, I knew what was important today, and that was coming in front of you, being able to share what we're trying to do. Didn't get a chance to share everything, but I know behind me there are others that will come and talk to you. You have to push us. You have to let us know. You have to assist us with the recruitment. You have to tell us when you think that there are things that are just unacceptably low, because that's what I think. At the same time, I've got to push myself. I've got to push my managers to be better. And if we push each other in the right direction, then I think we will get better. And each time we come in front of this group, we should be a little bit better than we were before. And we're not satisfied until all of you hear a report from me or any other director when we walk into this group every year and we've improved to the point of your satisfaction, where when I walk out of here, you all stand up and applaud because we did a tremendous effort. When that day comes, I've done my job. I got to go. Thank you very much.
Checks. On behalf of one of our sponsors, National City, a token of our appreciation, a pen for you to sign the checks with.
Thank you. Bless you and thank you.
We're going to take a 5-minute break so that we can stay on schedule. Thank you.
How are you? Good. Fair enough. No worries.
Again, if we could take our seats so that we can get the most out of our next segment, I'd appreciate it. Oh, look, I found something.
I was going to say, I didn't know you were leaving that up there for me.
For lunch.
For everybody?
So while everybody files in, I'm going to start introductions. Our next presenter, who was with us last year here at Hispanic Day in the Capitol, and who has very graciously given up his time to be with us again, is David Winton of Penman & Winton. They are a lobbying firm here in Jefferson City. David particularly represents the Jewish Federation, which was how I first got in contact with him. And he's, again, going to try and give us some understanding here today about how to be more effective lobbyists. I do ask, please, out of respect for the people who are here to give us their time, that we take our seats and that we be ready, please. Yeah. They've given us their time. Let's us give them ours. So with that, and also assisting today is Ann Klaus, who's going to be doing the second half of the presentation. So with that, again, please welcome David Winton.
Thanks. I promise you, I will not take an hour. So I think we're all on safe ground here. Ann Klaus, she lobbies with our firm here in Jefferson City. So you've already been over the Capitol this morning. I know many of the faces in this room were here last year. You've been around the Capitol. You've lobbied. So I'm not going to try and kind of talk to you about lobbying 101. What I'd like to talk to you a little bit about is what's happening in the legislature right now. You know, what it looks like from the other side, I think, from those guys and ladies over there. And what are some things to think about now that you've done this and you're going to go home? And so I think that one of the things you might have found when you went over the Capitol this morning was a lot of distraction. I mean, did anybody feel like folks were so focused and not distracted? And this is kind of the time of the year. There's a lot of things happening in state government right now that are not particularly enjoyable things. We do quite a bit of work in the budget. Our firm represents a fairly significant number of nonprofit organizations, the Jewish Federation being among them. And we, some days fortunately and some days unfortunately, have the privilege of working in the appropriations process. And so we get to see the budget from the inside and the out. And, right now, that's not a good place to be at the moment. And so what that means is, it means that we make a lot of tough choices when there's no money. And I will tell you, just from a practical standpoint, and I have a lot of clients that we have this conversation about once a week, this legislature, this General Assembly, this executive branch is not going to raise taxes in Missouri. It's not going to happen. So the option for the Missouri General Assembly and for the executive branch is to live within the means that they have at the moment. That's not a particularly attractive kind of position if you're out there trying to figure out how to make education work, how to make higher ed work, how to make health and human services work, how to deal with corrections and treatments, and all the other plethora of things that state government's in charge of doing. So I would tell you that today, this year, next year, our General Assembly, our policymakers at the state level are faced with some of the worst possible choices that they have. And I think our budget director, Linda Lubering, who works for Kelvin, who was just here, who's a fantastic Office Administration director, she was recently quoted in the paper saying, we're no longer talking about cutting bad programs out of the budget. We're not talking about cutting excess, cutting waste. We're talking about cutting one good program instead of another good program. And that's really where we sit today. And one of the things that legislators have a really rough time doing is they have a really rough time going home and explaining doing unpopular things. One of the things that the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Jewish Federation, other groups that do not only have an economic development focus, but also have a community focus do for our policymakers is we give them the support to make tough decisions, to do the right thing, and to go home and be proud of those decisions. Because I will tell you, you, like me, we're all special interests when we walk into the Capitol building. And the question you have to ask is your special interest, do you rise to the level of getting the attention of policymakers? It's not a judgment. It's not, I'm better than you or you're better than me. It's, this is what we do. This is what our system is. And so knowing that context, understanding that we're sitting kind of at the precipice right now of redefining how state government operates. And I'm not a big, you can ask Ann, I'm not a big drama person. I'm not one of those people that tries to make something worse than it is. I'm not a believer in that. But I will tell you, and I've been doing this for 17 years, we are standing right now at a place where state government next year will have to make choices about what it does and who it does it for that are fundamentally different than the choices it makes today. And so we're standing, and we're looking at that from a policy perspective. In that context, in comes you, and in comes me. And what do we say? What do we think about that? And that's where the work that you did this morning and the work that you do in your community and the fact that you're an organized entity that's capable of speaking with one voice really comes into play. Because, you met with a bunch of legislators today. I'm sure you had fabulous messages, good talking points, and great conversations. The question is, what will you do now? How will you take that? So when I talk to people, what's the difference between a lobbyist and an advocate? A lobbyist is somebody who has relationships with policymakers. An advocate is somebody that appears for the purpose of advocacy. Those are two fundamentally different things. And again, it's not I'm better than somebody else or they're better than me. They're different. I'm in the Capitol all the time. These are my friends. Even the people that I don't agree with, even the people that I go home at night scratching my head, tell my wife that I'm glad they weren't in front of me when I pulled out of my parking lot today. These are my friends. These are people that I care about. I have a relationship with them. I know them on a different level than policy, which makes it easy to talk to the most conservative member of the General Assembly about the importance of treatment in our correctional facilities, because we happen to represent the group that does a lot of treatment as a nonprofit. It makes it easy to talk to that same member about why it's fundamentally important for the infrastructure of this state to make sure everybody's got health care, in the state, that everybody's got a certain level of access to that. It's easy for me to go in and talk to other people about the importance of talking about human service development the same way we talk about economic development, because it's all the fabric of one community, because we build those relationships. And that's kind of the challenge for you all, right? You're here, you're all very successful in what you do. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. You're not here on your own behalf. You're here on behalf of a community, of a greater whole. And so the question you have to put in front of yourself is whether or not you're able, in your life and in your world, to internalize making advocacy and lobbying on behalf of whatever group you care about part of what you do on a daily basis. And what that means is an investment. Everything else we do in our lives, we make choices about investment. I make a choice whether or not I want to invest in my son's tennis playing. Most of the time that choice is really driven by whether he's nice to me or not, but nonetheless I make that choice, right? So we all make choices, and my question to you is it a valid choice to decide to appropriate your time and energy to not only building this successful organization that you are clearly building, but is it a good choice? Is it a valid choice? Is it worthwhile to invest your time and yourself in building relationships with members of the General Assembly? The answer 30 years ago would have been no. The answer today is resoundingly yes. 30 years ago, state policymakers did very little in relation to our everyday lives. Most things were derived at the federal level, and state policymakers were primarily a group of people that implemented what were the federal rules, what were the federal laws, and how do we get inside of those rules and laws. So those were in there, but not as much. Today, virtually everything we do is controlled by our state legislature and our local county councils. And so this investment that you've made today, if you can make an hour a week of an investment in building a relationship with your member of the General Assembly, I guarantee you that investment pays dividends in the long run. Not only does it pay dividends for you, but it pays dividends for that legislator, because they get a perspective and a richness that they don't normally have, and they welcome it. That's the other thing that I really want people to walk away and understand, is that what you're doing today is not an imposition on members of the General Assembly or the executive branch. What you're doing today is a welcome activity over at the Capitol building. This is, I'm fond of saying, this is how we play the game. When you walk into a legislator's office, they want to know what you want from them. It's not because they don't want to talk to you, it's because that's the way the game works. They want you to want them. That's what they got elected for. So your job is to use that relationship to do something that's important to you. And by doing that, you help that legislator grow also in that capacity. And I want to tell you, I don't think that really there's time to spare in this. We have term limits in the state, 8 years and 8 years. When I first got to the General Assembly, there were people that had been around for 30 plus years. They knew. There was nothing I could tell them that they didn't know. Any idea that I had, that I brought to certain people, they had tried before. We have a whole group of people right now that aren't there for very long. They don't have the luxury of time to develop these relationships. They need you to do that. They need you to provide that relationship so that they can get the experience and grow. And so the most important thing that I can share with you about what you are doing and how you are doing it is that today, start today, continuing to grow that relationship. And it's really easy to start. Whoever you spoke to today, think about as you're driving home. Tomorrow morning, jot a little note down to that person. It was great to see you. I really enjoyed it. I hope we can develop a relationship. I would value that. And send it to them. I will promise you that it is 90% likely you'll get a response from that. And then take that, put it on your calendar for 2 weeks from now, and email that person, or, hey, I found this article. I thought you would be interested. Begin developing a relationship. You know, I'm from South Florida. We didn't have a professional baseball team in South Florida. When I got to Missouri, I realized very quickly that apparently people really like baseball in Missouri. St. Louis and Kansas City, it's kind of a big deal. I'm just going to confess, I hate baseball. I know, I'm sorry. And you know, here's the worst part of it. I have a left-handed son who plays tennis who can throw the ball hard and straight. And so I actually like baseball from the perspective of potentially retiring on the idea of my son to be a relief pitcher, but I can't stand it. But what I saw immediately was people connected on baseball. It didn't matter where people were on the spectrum, they connected on that. And because they connected on baseball, they had a trust level with each other. Now, I don't get it because I don't like baseball. But then that really helped me understand what this all means. It's not about pitching somebody whether economic development tax credits are good or bad for them. That's a short-term game. That doesn't matter. You know, any bill that gets passed this year, we're all going to say the sky's going to fall. I've been doing this for 17 years. The sky never falls. Okay, the sky always comes up tomorrow. This is a long-term game. Sure, bills can be bad, bills can be great, they can have impacts, yes and no, but nothing is going to stop this state from moving forward, no matter what they do. The question is, will we have a role in influencing the direction of the state? That's the game in the conversation. And if you can build that relationship, there's 197 members of the General Assembly. You guys are doing a great job building a really strong Chamber of Commerce. Expanding that Chamber of Commerce's influence outside is going to be an incredibly valuable thing to do. And so I am happy to try and take any questions you have. We have some wonderful experience, and I know I've shared some of this with Jorge, and we've talked back and forth on numerous occasions. You know, there's no limit to what you can do. There's no limit to the amount of advocacy you can have. There's no limit to the idea. And by the way, advocacy, lobbying, political contributions, these are not dirty words. No matter what anybody says, no matter what you read in the paper, these are all things that you can do to support people that view the world the same way you view the world, and that want to make the world look like you want to make the world. That's what the system's about. So I really would encourage you to use this opportunity to kick off a greater investment in what you're doing here. So I have a whole bunch of little keys on, you know, listening and responding and all that stuff, but come on, you guys are all professionals in this room. You all get that. You meet and you work with people every single day. You know how to conduct a meeting and you know how to follow up. I would just encourage you to invest that little bit inside of these relationships and use all the skills that you have as business people and community leaders to invest in those relationships and build them and make them better. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and I really apologize. I got called to a 1:30 meeting. Yes, sir.
As you mentioned, this is a great opportunity for our community to get to the Capitol building and meet our representative. How do you advise or suggest or recommend an approach to a legislator that is interested or is driven by the potential vote you're bringing? Because even though statistically the Hispanic community has not a significant percentage as a population, we are becoming national, the biggest minority. So please, we want to hear your thoughts.
I mean, I guess I'd just say yes. I think you said it. I'll tell you what I love the most. I love purchasing power studies. Does anybody ever see these? I just love them, and there are these great purchasing power studies about the African American community, the Hispanic community, the Jewish community, and what you can do when you get upset. What I think you can also do, though, is you can reward people for doing the right thing. And you can channel that energy. And I think you said it. I mean, I don't exactly know how to couch it any differently other than to say that's exactly what you do. You go into legislators, you talk about who you represent. You talk about the fact that these are the ideas that are important to your community. These are the values that you embody as a community. And here are the ways that we'd like them to look as they're executed into public policy. They translate. And so I think, but building that relationship is exactly what that means. Not only here in the Capitol. I always get a chuckle when I learn that somebody who lives in their own community will come all the way up here to visit with their legislator, but actually won't drive the 4 minutes across town to visit with them when they're in district. Do that. Enjoy that relationship. Bring people in. Invite them to dinner. I mean, how else would you make a friend of somebody? That's the application here. Yes, sir.
Now, Hector was alluding to the fact that because we are 3.7% or not even 3%, how much of that would be window dressing with regard to the receiver, and how much would be an impact? We know the numbers. We go here, we're utilizing the means that you're suggesting as a good way, but how do I make a real impact on that person besides the personal relationship that can get a little bit there? Is it wise to, because they are wise, they know that our community was a few millions, now it's close to 43 million statewide. What I drive is that, in fact, those 46 million may live in Missouri. So therefore, watch what you're doing and, be jovial in that regard. But how do we, because I get a lot of window dressing. So, and I know that when there are close elections, a few votes may make the difference.
Right.
So I try to project that difference may be my few votes.
Sure. Well, I will tell you, as somebody who has his roots in a pretty super minority community like the Jewish community, and having done this, sometimes it's about the amplitude of your voice and the quality of your message, and not about the number of people. Legislators have two things they have to do if they want to be successful. They have to get reelected. That's clearly a measure of success in any political office. And they have to solve problems. Some people can help them get reelected fairly readily. And I would argue that the Hispanic community has the capacity to help legislators be reelected vis-a-vis campaign contributions and other activities. You have to put, I will be honest with you, you have to put the investment in if you want to reap the benefit out of it. You also have the ability to put good solutions on the table. You have perspective. And so I really encourage folks that I work with not to forget that part. You have good ideas. Good ideas are worth something in the marketplace. And that's the catalyst. I don't think it's about whether or not the Hispanic community represents 10%, 3%, 20%, or 30% of the population. I think it's about the quality of the community, the quality of the content, the quality of the ideas, the ability for advocacy. I once had a legislator tell me, because I said, you're doing something and my client's he's just going to want to burn the place down over this. And he said, I'll tell you what happens. If I get 10 letters, that's all it will take to change my mind. That is a landslide. This is a person that represented at the time 30,000 people, okay? 10 letters. So it gives you some idea of the scope that we're talking about. And as a community, I believe that you've already crossed that threshold. Thank you all. All right, do that.
That's what I'm coming for. David, on behalf of our sponsor, National City, a pen for you. Thank you for coming, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah, come on.
I think what we just heard is extremely important, and it's part of our educational process and political development to understand of how to follow up. We have put together one document of most of the items that we just heard about what to do following up today. And I'll be passing this, and if you are interested to receive it via electronically, put your email and we can send. So I have two parts you can sign in the back. And following up as well, former Governor Holden, as well as Professor Eduardo Silva from University of Missouri, have offered to do on a regular basis political training and political educational process into building up this political awareness and advocacy for Hispanics. So same thing, if you are interested to be part of that, we don't have the dates yet. We thought every other month we would have a lunch meeting or an evening training so we can prepare and not coming here to Jefferson City once a year and they having just this one day, but we can be building up this learning and following up in these steps throughout the year. So I really encourage everyone here who is interested to continue to participate in being a leader to consider that and put your name, email, and contact information so you can receive this invitation. So I'll be passing this information.